I, 28M, married my wife, 27F, 2 years ago. We met at university as classmates, dated for about a year, and decided to tie the knot. Our marriage was going smoothly, and we were genuinely happy together. No major issues. Around 10 months ago, we found out my wife was pregnant. I was ecstatic since we had been trying for a baby. However, her reaction was completely different. Early in the pregnancy, her mood changed drastically. She became irritable and angry most of the time. I chalked it up to pregnancy hormones and tried to be supportive, as I'd heard mood swings were common. Then, out of nowhere, she started mentioning wanting an abortion. When I asked why, she refused to explain. I told her I was excited to become a father and hoped she'd feel the same way eventually. Looking back, I wish I had pushed harder for answers. A month and a half ago, I came home from work to find her crying in the dining room. When I asked what was wrong, she confessed she had been unfaithful and that the baby wasn't mine. She revealed the father was the brother of one of her friends, someone she had known for years. I was devastated. In shock, I told her to rest, and we talked the next day. She kept apologizing and begging for forgiveness, but I couldn't process anything. I spent the entire night sitting in the dining room, trying to make sense of it all. The following morning, I told her to pack her things and go to her parents' house while I figured out what to do. She pleaded with me to reconsider, even clinging to me as she apologized, but I stood firm. I called her brother to pick her up, and he took her without asking many questions. After she left, I contacted a divorce lawyer to prepare the paperwork. We had a prenup stating that if either of us committed adultery, the other would receive all shared assets. A couple of days later, her family started calling nonstop. When I didn't answer, they showed up at my house with her, demanding to know what was going on. I told them to ask her. Right there, in front of everyone, she admitted to the affair. To make matters worse, her mother and sister confessed they had known about it, but chose to keep it from me. I asked them all to leave and informed them they would be receiving the divorce papers soon. I also told them I wanted a paternity test when the baby was born. My wife kept begging me for another chance, but I refused and told them I would call the police if they didn't leave. Later, her father offered to buy me a house and a car if I forgave her, but I declined. Since then, her family has been harassing me constantly, but I've ignored them. About 10 days ago, my wife gave birth to a baby boy. I insisted on a paternity test, despite her family's attempts to discourage it. Yesterday, I got the results. I'm not the father. I immediately finalized and sent the divorce papers. Now, her family is pressuring me to reconsider, saying she made a mistake and I should forgive her. Her mother called me, begging me to stay with her daughter, and admitted the baby's father abandoned her after learning about the pregnancy. She claimed they don't know where he is now. I told her this wasn't my responsibility to fix and asked her not to contact me again. Since then, my wife has started sending me threatening messages, claiming she'll harm herself and the baby if I don't take her back. I haven't responded. So, everyone, AITA for divorcing my wife after she cheated and lied about the baby being mine? After I sent her the divorce papers, I thought the worst was behind me. I was convinced all I had left to deal with were her threats and her family's persistent attempts to interfere. But I was wrong. It was just the beginning. A few days after receiving the paternity test results, my life started turning into a nightmare. The calls began first. Her mother called me every day, begging me to give her daughter another chance. She cried over the phone, swearing that her daughter was confused and had made a mistake I had to forgive. Then the rest of her family joined in, brothers, sisters, cousins. They all repeated the same mantra, that I needed to think about the baby because he's innocent. But I stood my ground. I told them their problem wasn't mine, that I'd already suffered enough and wouldn't continue to participate in this farce. That's when the threats began. At first, they were mild. You'll regret abandoning her at such a time. No one will ever forgive you for this. But then they escalated. Her father called me late one night and said, "If you don't take her back, I promise I'll make your life unbearable." I turned off my phone and tried to focus on work, but even there, they didn't leave me alone. The next day, someone shared my personal information with my coworkers, my photo, phone number, and even my address. Her family had decided that if they couldn't reach me directly, they'd ruin my reputation. But the worst part was that she herself wouldn't leave me alone. Her messages became increasingly disturbing. She wrote that she couldn't see the point in living anymore, that everything was over if I left her. Then she started sending photos of herself and the baby, both looking miserable and crying. She even sent a video where she said that if I didn't come back, she would do something terrible to herself. I knew her words were manipulative, but part of me still felt guilty. Maybe I should have talked to her? Maybe I should have at least listened? But then I'd remember what she did, and anger would drown out every other emotion. About a week after the baby was born, she showed up at my house unexpectedly. I heard a knock on the door and saw her through the peephole. She was standing there holding the baby, begging me to let her in. I told her through the door that I wasn't going to let her in and asked her to leave. She started yelling, saying she wouldn't go anywhere until I came outside. I called the police. While they were on their way, she kept shouting. She said that if I didn't come out right then, she would do something I'd regret for the rest of my life. When the police arrived, she initially resisted but eventually left, crying and holding the baby. After that, I decided I needed a restraining order. My lawyer helped me file the paperwork, and the court quickly approved it, given everything that had happened. Her family didn't stop, though. They not only continued calling but also started posting about me on social media, painting me in a terrible light. They called me irresponsible, heartless, and a coward. People in the comments even began siding with them. I was shocked. How could they make me out to be the villain when she was the one who cheated? She was the one who lied to me for months, pretending I was the father of her child. But as it turns out, people are quick to believe what they're shown. The hardest moment came when one of my co-workers approached me at work and asked, "Is it true that you abandoned your pregnant wife and refused to take care of the baby?" That's when I realized I needed to defend my reputation. I recorded a detailed video explaining the entire story, from how we met to the paternity test results. I posted it on my social media, attaching a scan of the DNA test and the divorce documents. The video quickly gained traction. People started to see the other side of the story, and those who initially judged me began to support me. But this only enraged her family further. They started accusing me of publicly humiliating her and ruining her life. I realized these people would never stop. In the end, I decided to leave town. I switched to remote work, found a new place to live, and changed my phone number. It's been a few months now. The calls and threats have stopped. Honestly, I still can't believe everything I went through. But one thing I know for sure, I made the right choice. Living with someone who shattered your trust is impossible. Now, I'm focusing on myself, my health, and my future. If anyone ever asks me if I regret my decision, my answer will be firm. No. Life is too short to waste it on people who betray you.